My dear Masala Podcast fans, I've written a book called Bad Daughter. You surprised by the title? I think not. I've never shared such deeply personal things before. I talk about growing up in poverty. I talk about my father's violence, my mother's murder. I talk about how I turned my pain into power, navigating mental health, sexuality, spirituality, and patriarchy. Bad Daughter is my story of going from Mumbai's slums to New York's billboards. But it's your story too. What's the message of this book? It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what happened to you. You still get to have the life that you want. If you're looking for a book to move you and inspire you to change your life, type in Bad Daughter by Sangeeta Pillai on Amazon or go to my website baddaughter.co.uk.
Sharam, Badtameez, Chee.
I'm Sangeeta Pillai, and this is the Masala Podcast, where we talk about all those things that we're not supposed to talk about as South Asian women. Sex, sexuality, periods, menopause, mental health, nipple hair, shame, and many more taboos. It's time we heard the voices of real South Asian women, not just those we see in Bollywood or in mainstream Western media. It's time we had a real voice, a loud and proud and strong voice.
You know, I do get a lot of animosity. I do get a lot of things thrown at me. And, you know, being a drag queen, it is all about performance. And I'm never going to give up my right to perform.
And you're an incredible performer, so there's no need why you should, ever.
Oh, thank you. Keep it coming.
I've invited some incredible women to sit at my kitchen table, drink chai and put the world to rights. In this episode, I'm talking to Asifa Lahore, Britain's first out Muslim drag queen. Asifa is a performer and TV star. She featured in Channel 4's documentary Muslim Drag Queens in 2015 with an audience of over 1 million viewers. She's been the face of Channel 4's 2016 diversity campaign, True Colour. Asifa Lahore is constantly pushing the boundaries of what it means to be LGBT, South Asian and Muslim. So Asifa, do you remember the first time or that moment of what it felt like to come out to your family as gay?
My God. So I was about 23 and it wasn't like I'd planned it. It wasn't like, oh my God, today's the day I'm going to come out as gay. It just so happened that my mum was cleaning my room, as all Asian mothers tend to do. They tend to be very nosy. She came across a magazine, basically a gay magazine that I had. And she questioned me about it. And I sort of, up until that point, I think I'd led such a double life, like one in the house, being the good South Asian boy living in Britain. And then the outside life was totally like LGBT focused. You know, everyone knew who I was. So when my mum questioned me about it, it was just the mechanism for me to stop lying. And I'll never forget it, actually. It was a moment that will stay with me forever. So when my mum asked me what the magazine was about, two thoughts came into my head. One was lie your head off, like you've done for however many years. And the other thought was just tell her. And it came out of me so instantly. And even though these two thoughts came into my head and it may have lasted a second, it felt like an eternity. It felt like an absolute lifetime, like a slow motion scene in a film. And I just said, "Ammi main gay hoon." And, you know, for those of us who don't speak Hindi or Urdu, Mom, I'm gay. And yeah, what followed was weeks and weeks of questions. Some I had the answers for, some I didn't. Some I did, but because it's such a personal, like, part of my life, like, do you really want to divulge such private parts of your life and your experiences to your parents. It was a very tough time.
No, I can imagine. And then there was the whole phase where you came out as trans, because that was much later, wasn't it? I remember you telling me this when we met for the first time.
Yeah, so I came out 10 years later when I was 33 as trans. And obviously, like, it's a privilege to come out as a gay man, to come out first, like the first time around. But I think it's even another privilege to come out twice in your life. And I came out as transgender 10 years after I came out as a gay man. And I think during that decade, I think my family had come round to the idea of me, or the notion that, you know, I was an LGBT person. I was an LGBT person. I had a queerness about me. But I think it was easier for them to understand me as transgender simply because visibility of the Hijra community and the trans community and the eunuch community is in South Asian countries is much more visible than it is here in the West.
It's a known entity, isn't it?
It's very much a known entity. It's very much known as its own community. I'm not saying it's all hunky-dory and perfect. There are still things that need to be done to, you know, raise visibility of these communities in our motherlands. But it's definitely a known entity. You know, it wasn't a whole... it wasn't a surprise, shall we say, to my parents. In fact, actually, when I first came out as a gay man, my mum and dad did ask me, is this because you're Hijra? Essentially, is it because you're transgender? And at that time, I didn't quite understand who I was. So at the time, I said no. But then the more and more I went into my life's journey, the more I realized.
Growing up in India, hijras are very much part of daily life. A hijra, for those who don't know, is someone who is male at birth but identifies as either female or as neither male or female. I remember hijras turned up when a baby was born in someone's house. I remember the parents and grandparents hurriedly gave them money so they would bless the baby. The same thing happened at weddings. Hijras would turn up, a lovely big group of them clapping loudly, and once again the family would quickly give them gifts and money. When I was a child, I always thought that maybe hijras had something to do with being lucky, and that's why everyone wanted them at these special occasions. I knew from books that hijras were a big part of Hindu as well as India's Muslim history. But Victorian England changed all that. When the British colonized India, they brought with them stricter sexual mores, criminalizing anything they considered immoral. A few years ago, India officially recognized transgender as a third gender by law. But from what I remember, it's not all hunky-dory. The people celebrating the births of their babies or the weddings of their children looked a bit terrified when the hijras turned up. A lot of Indians believe hijras have the power to bless or curse them, hence the terror. The hijras have been forced to use that fear to survive, to feed themselves. Many hijras are forced to perform blessings while begging on trains and buses. There are so many sad stories of them being forced into sex trades, being exploited, being castrated and humiliated. I remember hijras appearing suddenly, sticking their heads inside the auto, what people know as tuk-tuks, when we were stuck in traffic lights. I'd be a bit scared of them and wonder, why did they do it? Now I get it. They do it because society hasn't given them an option. What else can they do? What does it feel like to be trans and South Asian, or queer and South Asian? Different in any way? What does that feel like?
To me, I've never felt anything else, so I wouldn't know what normal feels like, if that makes sense. To me, I've always been queer, I've always been transgender, I've always been Asian. So those things all just sit with me and I don't know any better. So when somebody asks me, oh, you must have lived quite a challenging life, quite a tough life. It must be very hard being you. I think in a nutshell, yes, but I wouldn't want any other way and I don't know any other way because these are my identities. Yes, there have been challenges along the way, trying to get my family and my parents to understand it, worrying about what the community will think or what other people think. But at the heart of it all, I think, I'm 36 now. And I feel very comfortable in all my identities. I definitely consider myself as a very intersectional person, and I don't feel I need to give one identity up for another identity. My desiness or my Asianness is still very much intertwined with my queerness. That's something I'm very proud of.
What are the most desi things about your life or things that you like? Like for me, I'll tell you what it is for me. For me, saris. I love wearing saris and I feel really Indian and very feminine when I wear a sari. Food, obviously. Everything from like samosas to jalebis. Like my mouth's watering when I'm talking about it. Jewelry, dancing. These are all my kind of bits of my Asian identity. What is it for you?
Very similar. I mean, I love Bollywood films. I love the glamour that comes with Asian wear. Saris, lehenga, shalwar kameezes. I love the languages. I love being able to either go to Pakistan or go to my mum and dad's place here in London or even like meeting other Desi peoples and just talking in Urdu or Hindi or Punjabi and just having fun with it, I love cooking and obviously I love cooking, Asian cuisine, South Asian cuisine. And what else do I like? There's a certain sense of freedom that you get being Asian that you wouldn't normally get if you were just British white, for example. It's a different type of experience. It's a different sense of expression. And I really love the way Asian people express themselves. And
can you give me an example?
Can I give you an example? So last year I took my best friend and flatmate, Sergio, to Pakistan. And he basically picked up this colloquial term in Karachi that everybody says before any sentence. And it's, are, are. And it's kind of like if somebody wants to express themselves and they say, oh my gosh, did you see that on the news? Somebody will say, Are tune dekha news pe kya tha aaj? That kind of thing. And it's kind of like he just picked up this sense of are, which isn't really a word, but it's an expression. Very and true. It's a full-blown expression that people use, and they use their whole body when they say it. And when he came back to London, it was literally like, are. That was amazing.
That's brilliant. I know what you mean. Things like Hiram or
exactly
in South Indian language, ayo. There is no other word
or
for
ayya.
it. Ayya. It's like, oh my God, but it doesn't quite translate.
Yeah.
But there's a richness, I think, to the languages.
Definitely.
themselves.
It's an expression. It's a exclamation, and we don't really get that in English.
You don't. It's quite held back, I think, English.
Yes,
in many ways,
it is definitely reserved.
Compared to maybe Asian languages. Let's talk about kind of life in the UK. What's it like being trans, being South Asian, being brown, and living in the UK in this time and age?
Oh, wow. What a question. I mean, me personally, I've created a life for myself. I've created a really happy medium where I'm living my life, where I'm expressing myself as trans and Asian and British. And I have a life that definitely works for me. I'm really happy. I'm out, obviously, in all my identities. But I do realize that there are a lot of challenges as well. People, I get challenged from within the Asian community about my identities, about who I am. Things are getting better. I think the younger generation, don't really care. They don't really care about, I think, living in a country where you're demonized one way or other, whether it's your race, your religion, your gender, your sexuality. I think every Asian person will come against being the other. So young people don't really care, if I'm honest with you. But obviously, I'm second generation, so I have to deal with the first generation, i.e. my parents, i.e. my immediate families. And that obviously has its challenges. Now, my family, the large majority of my family, both here and in Pakistan, are quite accepting, I would say. There are some sections that are quite orthodox and right-wing conservative Muslim, but, even they are pretty respectful, shall we say, Even with my parents, they would be very respectful. So me personally, I mean, despite all the challenges that have been before, where I am now, I'm really happy in life. But I've reached a point in my life where I'm very much about bringing visibility to the issue and actually shouting out about the people that don't have it as I do right now. And I'm not saying it's been an easy ride. I mean, people say that, they may say that, point a finger and go, oh God, I've got a really great accent, I've got a degree, I've got my own place, I am of a certain privilege. But the reality is I've had to fight and go through so many obstacles just to get to this point of apparent privilege, I come from my mum and dad's family originates from the slums of Karachi and Lahore. It's not like I was born privileged, not at all. I've had to fight for my own privilege. And when I do shout out about, representing sort of like trans people in the UK, I take on board all my denominations because, trans people of colour are very low visible in the UK. And then when you add on the Asianness and in my case, the Islamicness, God, it becomes even more harder to be visible. So, yeah, I guess in a nutshell, that is my life in being trans and Asian in the UK today.
What about kind of hate crimes and things like that? Because I read an interview with you, I think, where you mentioned a statistic which is quite scary. It said hate crimes against trans people have gone up 81%.
Exactly. I mean, that's
horrendous.
That's horrendous. And, there's a lot of post-Brexit referendum rhetoric in there. I think people have given themselves permission to hate openly on the other. I think, Brexit Britain has really allowed that for people to happen. I think, look, the more and more things become visible, like, when we're sort of like towards the end of the 2019 Pride season. I've only got 2 gigs remaining and of the Pride season. And literally, this was probably the most visible Pride ever. Like London Pride, if you went up and down central London, every store had like the rainbow flag in there. There were adverts on TV. Everything was very pro LGBT Pride. So when the pendulum swings one way, in this case it's left, it's inevitable that it will swing the other way, or it will get a reaction from the other side. So, this figure of 81% rise in hate crime against trans people, I'm not surprised. And on the other hand, if you look at hate crime in general, it's gone up towards Asian people, towards Muslim people, towards, European people. So it's about looking at this statistic in a wider picture.
So it's a sign of our times.
It's definitely. I think we're living through much more divided times. And, I think what can be more the other than trans people?
Trans brown person.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
No, I hear that. Do you think within British media, though, there is true diversity, or do you think that there is a lack of true diversity that actually reflects the population of this country?
It's definitely getting better. I mean, it's definitely better than, say, 5 years ago, where, people behind the screen and on screen, you would just see mostly white, or you wouldn't see people's diverse experiences shown on screen or in storylines. And that's definitely become much more better. I mean, I think the BBC and, Channel 4 are definitely great on diversity, but God, there's still a massive way to go. Like, I feel sometimes with every step that's taken forward, it takes a long time. It takes a lot of effort. And, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in terms of commissioning, in terms of speaking to the right people at the broadcasters, in terms of getting people on side. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle that people that fit the other identities have to go through those hoops and barriers just to get themselves seen. Now, I recently went to give a interview for BBC Manchester Radio, and actually it was at a studio in BBC Westminster. And when you went in, the only black person I saw was the security guard. And I think that just says it all. It's just...
It totally does.
Diversity has to be in every branch of the tree for it to really be seen. It can't just be the leaves. It just can't be the roots. It has to be everywhere. So, God, we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely. And it's got to be more than a tick boxing exercise, doesn't it?
Totally. I mean,
It has to be properly inclusive.
We're speaking on the day that I'm a major fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. And today the cast of the UK version has just been released. And out of the 10 competing drag queens, you've got 8 white queens, 1 black queen, and 1 East Asian queen. And that's it. That's meant to represent...
There are no brown queens in there.
There's no brown queens in there. And it's ridiculous because, I mean, when we look at the Desi or the South Asian kind of drag culture in the UK, it's the largest probably in the world outside of, the motherlands. So it just goes to show, like, diversity, like, it isn't, being
Absolutely.
portrayed.
And I think the work that people like yourself do are a big part of this.
Sure.
So if you go out on your channels and say, hey, you know what, where are the brown people in this, we're the largest community doing this kind of, work. And where are we? So I think making that noise, which is what you do, is really, really important. Because otherwise, if you don't say anything, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Things just carry on.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I hear you. The other thing I was really keen to talk to you about was faith, your identity, your sexuality, and your faith. Can you talk to me a little bit about it, please?
Yeah, of course. My faith is really, really important to me. And it's very much because it's intertwined in my Asianness. Being sort of born into a British Pakistani household, Islam was not only a form of prayer or fasting during Ramadan or going on pilgrimage or believing in God or giving to charity. It was much more than that. It was a link to your identity. And, the way we practice Islam in our household, it was in a very desi manner. I remember my mum, when we were young, taking us to the local Asian community center. And obviously the local Asian community center had its own links with, the Indian community, the Bangladeshi community, Pakistani community, Sri Lankan, etc. But, I remember like the Asian center having Friday prayers for women or doing like fast breaks during Ramadan, and all the Asian people coming together for these things, the Bangladeshis, the Indians and the Pakistanis. And I just remember feeling this whole sense of faith, but also desiness. And, my link with faith is through that. I mean, there's been so many times through my activism where I've been told to leave Islam, and so, for example, if you go on YouTube, there's a Channel 4 interview, a Channel 4 News interview with me and Dr. Naseem, who's now passed away. But at the time, in 2014, live on television, he said, my name was Asif then, my male name was Asif. Like, Asif is, it's okay for him to be gay. He just can't be Muslim. So he is welcome to leave Islam.
Whoa.
And I was like, wow, this is coming from like an imam or, a really Islamic preacher whose main job is actually to look at it on paper, is to actually promote the religion and, convince in many ways to more people to join it. And here he is, doing the anti-word of God in many ways and publicly saying, do you know what? You're not Muslim enough, so leave. So for me to physically leave Islam, I'd have to leave my family. I'd have to leave all my Pakistani roots. I'd have to leave, the trips to Pakistan, the close relationship I have with mom and dad. And it just doesn't work for me.
Because faith is part of culture and culture is part of faith, isn't it?
Totally. Of course. I mean, I believe it's really fluid. I mean, if Islam, for example, is practiced in Britain, I believe it's British. If it's practiced in Pakistan, it's Pakistani. If it's, and hence why there's so many different sects of the religion, and hence why there's so many different variations. You have some Muslim women wearing the hijab, some not, some only wearing the dupatta, for example, which, is seen as very desi. So, yeah, it's open to interpretation.
I've heard you say, I think in an interview, which I was listening to earlier, about the fact that you have a faith, you pray every day, you go to the mosque, you've even been to Hajj. So you're a practicing Muslim.
Yeah, I mean, I pray as much as I can. I think as of now, God, my schedule is ridiculously busy. And I'll be honest, I class myself as an open-minded and progressive Muslim. These days, I'm not getting to pray every day. So I'm lucky if I can actually just make the Friday prayers at the mosque, for example. But all the 5 pillars of Islam are really important to me, and, one, I haven't actually shared this with anyone yet, but I'm actually one of the pillars is charity, is zakat. And another one is pilgrimage, for example, Hajj. I've obviously been, and I'm actually paying for my oldest aunt, who's my mum's oldest sister, to go later in the year. And it's because I love her. It's because, I've already done it. And I want to give someone else a chance to do it, who isn't from a privileged background. My aunt cannot afford to go. And so, and I know my mum sees her older sister as her mum because, my oldest aunt is now 72. She's probably like in the last, I have to be realistic. She's not going to be in the world for very long. And if this is one thing that I can do for her, then, that's, I guess I'm telling you this because it's a sign of how close I am to both faith and my family. And my desiness.
Which absolutely, and that's the sort of stuff that grounds us, isn't it?
Yeah.
Within within the culture, because that's very much part of who we are, I think. Yeah. Have you faced any kind of repercussions from the community or from the faith for the choices that you've made?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, God, I remember when I did a Channel 4 documentary called Muslim Drag Queens, and even before then I got involved in BBC Free Speech, which was a program where I debated homosexuality and Islam. And yeah, God, I got death threats. I got letters sent to my door. I had emails saying, listing like my mum and dad's name and their address and things like that.
That's
and
scary.
I had to get the police involved. And although now, when I started my drag career, God, it was a good 7 years ago. And 7 years on, I mean, things have definitely calmed down. But I do think it's because, more and more South Asian people who identify as queer or LGBT are out there as well now. At the time, I felt very much like I was one of the first to sort of raise my head above parapet and give a face to this different identity of the time. So things have definitely calmed down now, but there are moments where I still worry, you just never know with what's waiting around the corner. So, but yeah, it hasn't been an easy ride.
So when you have a moment like that, where there's a death threat or something threatening to your family, what's your kind of coping mechanism? Where do you go to carry on the work that you do?
So, first of all, I think in that moment, I don't even think about myself. I think about my mum and dad. I think, obviously, okay, let me contact the police, tell them about this, make sure that everyone has safety mechanisms in place. And then, mom and dad will have those conversations with me. Like, look, is this really worth it? Like, you can carry on doing what you're doing and performing clubs and whatnot, but you don't have to say all these things or, do these parodies that you may find funny, but, other people may have a problem with. And for 1 or 2 days or a week or so, I'll sit in the family home and sulk and look to the sky and go, oh, Allah, why me? But then I just brush it off and go, God, this is really my life. These are my experiences. And if I don't sing about them or perform about them, then what kind of impression am I giving to the world about not only myself, but about authenticity? And, I'm all up for people living their true and honest lives. And this is my true and honest life. There's large sections of the South Asian community that don't get to live openly. And I'm not just talking about LGBT-ness here. I'm just talking about, whether it's marrying the man of your dreams, or whether it's marrying out of caste or out of tribe or not marrying at all, or, having sex outside of marriage or premarital sex or whatever. Like, I just feel like a lot of South Asians are not living openly or are just remaining quiet and just doing it anyway and living that whole double life that we all do. But I guess yes, it is brave, but for me, there's no other way. Like, if I want to live my life, I've got to be open. I can't, there's no point, like, that famous song from Mughal-e-Azam, Pyar Kiya To Darna. There's a line in it. I love that song by Lata Mashkar. Exactly. It's Parda nahi jab koi khuda se, bando se parda karna kya. So when nothing is veiled from the eyes of God, why veil yourself in front of his servants on earth? So
that's beautiful. And that kind of sums up what you do, I think, and what you stand for and what you believe in.
Yeah, Pyar kiya to darna kya. When you have loved, why be afraid?
I love that. So what can we, as, non-trans friends, how can we support you? How can we support the community that's trying to do this kind of quite difficult thing? What can we do?
Just be seen to support it, I guess. I mean, I was at a drag world convention at Kensington Olympia at the weekend just gone by. And I saw, out of like 10,000 or so people, I only saw 2 South Asian women attend and come to my stall. And they were like, oh my gosh, we're big fans. And, they bought some merchandise. And they were like, oh, can we take a picture with you? Can we retweet it? I said, sure, of course. And it's simple things like that. Just people just getting involved. And, it's sometimes I think people feel, God, we can't be seen as to making a big stand, or we might put ourselves at risk if we do this. But the reality is that if you just do it in ways that are as subtle as retweeting a tweet or reposting about something that's going on, or supporting a Bollywood film that has an LGBT theme in it, or there's so many ways to do it. I mean, currently in India as it stands, it's legal to be LGBT. So what are we afraid of?
I'm Sangeeta Pillai. Thank you for listening to the Masala Podcast. Masala Podcast is part of my platform Soul Sutras. What's that all about? Soul Sutras is a network for South Asian women, a safe space to tell our stories, a place to reclaim our bodies, to tackle taboos within our culture, to be exactly who we want to be. Get in touch and tell me your stories about your taboos. Check out my website soulsutras.co.uk or get in touch via email at soulsutras.co.uk. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Just look for Soul Sutras. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave me a nice review. It really helps.